Welcome to the Checkup with Dr. Bryan Terry, paid for by Bryan Terry for State Representative, Cheryl Terry Treasurer. Dr. Bryan Terry, State Representative in District 48 in Tennessee, and in today's episode of the Checkup, I'm going to give an update on the landfill and explain a bit about what is going on with their expansion attempt. So the big news is that Middle Point Landfill's expansion application hit a bit of a road bump in that it has been ruled incomplete. Now, as most folks in Rutherford County and Murfreesboro are aware, Middle Point Landfill filed an application for a vertical expansion in late October. And this week, I learned their application has been determined incomplete by the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation, otherwise known as TDEC. Middle Point received a notice of deficiency from TDEC concerning their application for a vertical expansion. Now, I've long been opposed to any expansion of Middle Point, and it's very important to me that our community understands this process and how this new information fits into the situation. And I like to view it in a three-step process. The first step is determining the right kind of permit application. We'll go over that in a bit. Number two is the permit application review by TDEC for completion. And number three is the permit approval process. Of course, any business or landfill essentially has unlimited time to determine if they want to file a permit application and which type of application to file. And step two, there is a 45 business day time frame for TDEC to determine if an application is complete. And then for step three, there's roughly a 240 day time frame for TDEC to evaluate the permit for approval. The 45 and the 240 day time frames aren't hard numbers, as each time frame can be paused when more information is needed. And that's the case right now regarding Middle Point's notice of deficiency. When TDEC issued this notice, the 45-day clock on this application was paused. And my understanding is that TDEC will still be evaluating the permit application for completeness once they turn in more information to TDEC, and the entire process does not have to start all over. And it's important to note that the three-step process is different depending on whether the application is for a major modification or if it's for an expansion. So during step three, the 240-day process for an expansion permit evaluation by TDEC, a county or municipality that has opted into the provisions of the Jackson Law can essentially veto the expansion. And then additionally, a regional solid waste board can block an expansion during this process if the proposal does not fit into the 10-year plan for the region. And this is different than the major modification. And though the major modification process is still an extensive process with a public hearing, the major modification applications can bypass both the Jackson Law and a regional solid waste board's local approval process. And so herein lies the first point of contention with Middle Point's expansion application. Instead of utilizing the expansion process pathway, Middle Point has filed a major modification paperwork application which, if approved, would bypass local approval. Now, by law, TDEC must evaluate their application even if it could be considered the wrong pathway. And the city of Murfreesboro has asked for an injunction to halt this first step, as they believe the wrong application has been filed. And I've spoken with the city, and I concur with the city on this as well. Any increase in footprint, whether it's horizontal or vertical, is by definition an expansion as opposed to just a major modification. Additionally, I'd like to point out that correspondence I've received from TDEC consistently refers to Middle Point's proposal as an expansion or a vertical expansion. The legal process that Murfreesboro is taking is going to take some time, and we as a community are going to need to be patient, but I believe the facts of this are going to be on our side. Other points of contention that could impact the approval process include the proposed engineering changes, the FAA and the flight hazards that occur by having a vertical expansion of the landfill, and of course the underground aluminum reactions that are ongoing out there. All these problems, amongst other issues in and of themselves, should preclude any expansion or major modification out at Middle Point Landfill. But if the courts take the appropriate action to ensure the appropriate application is filed, these points can be reviewed and judged by more than just TDEC. So to me, having local control on matters that directly impact the health, quality, and property values of our citizens is vital to protecting our liberty. And I will not quit fighting for our community and its citizens. I hope you've learned a bit from this episode of the Checkup. I enjoy getting information out to you folks, and with liberty, I'm Dr. Bryan Terry.